And it seemed to actually turn out to be one of the accidentally smartest things I could have ever done, because in essence what I'm doing is I'm writing about a man who drives around, an armed man who drives around Wyoming great distances in his truck, and they're solving problems like that. And I could either have him talk to the dog, or I could have him talk to himself. And I don't know about you guys, but armed people that talk to themselves really kind of worry me. I don't know about you. And so it was really kind of turned out to be a pretty good situation to have one and a dog, to be able to kind of bounce ideas off of. And there are two kinds of emails that I get after every book. One is, you beat up on Walt too much in the last book, you need to take it easy on him, like that, which I find really humorous, like that, because, it's like I have control, and I have to take it easy on Walt, like that. And then the other one was, there was not enough of my favorite character, insert name here. There was not enough Henry in the last book, or there wasn't enough Vic. There wasn't enough Lucian, and then I knew I'd gotten to a certain point when on the 5th book I had people writing me and saying, there really wasn't enough dog in the last book. Dog plays a big role in the next book. He's got a pretty good sized role. But then, as a side note, the other thing that they told me was, they said you can have sexual tension with your characters, but you can't let anything happen. They can't consummate any kind of sexual tension or anything like that, at least for 17 or 18 books, right? And my immediate response to that was, what kind of women are you dating anyway? So we'll wait for 17 or 18 years for something to happen, And so, I just blew that right out of the water. I was like, third book, kindness goes unpunished, something happens. Because all I thought was, what, all it's going to do is complicate their lives. And that's kind of what a series, it lives on, is the complexities of the characters and their abilities, to overcome certain things and to move on. And, the books that we all get tired of are the ones that are formulaic, that just do the same things over and over again. The characters don't learn anything, and they never find themselves in different situations. And so I thought, what, it's just going to complicate their lives. Let's just let something happen and see what happens with that. And so I wrote my first sex scene in my third book, Kindness Goes Unpunished. It was 3 sentences long. That just gives you an indication of just how big a chicken I am. Okay? I got in there and I got out. Okay? And so anyway, I wrote that sex scene, which was like 3 sentences, 1 paragraph, and I got it in there. And so then the book gets released, and so I was out on tour. I was in Olympia, Washington, and I got to the Q&A part, and there was a woman in the front seat, in the front chair, that was just dying, to ask a question. And I said, yes, ma'am. And she goes, I want to talk to you about that sex scene that's in Kindness Goes Unpunished. And I was like, okay, here we go. Okay. And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, it went on forever. I look at her and I go, it was only 3 sentences long. She starts turning bright red, okay? And everybody's laughing, And I looked at her and I go, how many times did you read it? James Clean, she goes, I read it a bunch of times. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know if you thought about doing Lucian with the missing leg show.
Well, he's in there. He's in there, actually. Well, missing the leg. I don't know. They have never shown us whether it is that Peter Weller has both his legs. We haven't had that opportunity yet, so we'll wait and see what happens with that. But he does a pretty marvelous job on Lucian, I have to say. When the question came up about Ruby, where that came from, Lucian was actually my father. I don't know. I think I've told this story before, and I'll try and keep it short like that. But when I wrote the first draft of The Cold Dish and sent it to my mother and father to read, I called up my mother. I also sent it to my brother. My brother, I knew I could get a quicker answer from him like that. So I called up my brother and I said, hey, have you read that manuscript that I sent over? And he goes, yeah, I have, and you're dead. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, Craig, the old sheriff that Walt goes and plays chess with on Tuesday nights, that's our dad. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, he looks like dad, he acts like dad, and talks like dad. The only thing he did was cut off one of his legs. I don't think that's going to fool dad, And so I said, I gotta go. And he goes, I bet you do. I hung up from him, I called my mother and father, my mom and dad. My mom answered the phone. And I said, Mom, you guys had a chance to read that manuscript? And she goes, yeah, we have. Well, I'm about halfway through. It's so good. She's my mom. What's she going to say, right? And so I said, well, has Dad read any of it? She goes, oh, yeah, he's about 2/3 of the way through. And I'm thinking, he's definitely read the Lucian parts. I'm thinking, how I'm going to ask this next question. And my mom comes back on the phone and she goes, honey, your father thinks he's Walt Longmire. characters are. Right? I'm shell-shocked trying to think how I'm going to answer this question. Like, and she comes back on the phone and she goes, let's not disabuse him of that part. I thought which was great, thinking he was Walt Longmire. It's kind of interesting though, because I was telling that story up in Canada. There was a guy in the audience in Canada. He goes, "We all think we're Walt Longmire." Somebody else said, "Yes, ma'am."
My question is, as an author, how do you decide when you're forming the character things like Walt not having a cell phone and drinking Rainier beer, certain specific things?
You don't know me very well, do you? That's the first answer to that question. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of things that inform. I mean, everything informs the character, but also the environment, is going to inform the character. Like, I'm always laughing whenever people ask me, why doesn't Walt carry a cell phone? And my immediate response is, have you ever been to Wyoming? Yes. I mean, unless you just want to take selfies with the pronghorn, it really, not much use, really in most areas. But it was a conscientious effort to try and get away from the technology. In many ways like that, because when I started writing the Walt books, that was whenever the CSI stuff was really huge, and all the writers were all writing about the technology. It was all about the forensics and the ballistics and the DNA evidence and all of this stuff like that. And it seemed a little funny that they could come up with that stuff like that. And so I ran into a DCI investigator here in Wyoming, and I asked him one time, I said, how long does it take you guys to get DNA evidence? And he paused for a second. He goes, is this a high-profile case? And I said, yeah, let's pretend like it's a high-profile case. He goes, about 9 months. And I was like, okay, so that's not really particularly honest what they're doing. He goes, no, it's not. We have one crime lab in the whole state of Wyoming. It's down in Cheyenne. And, in the middle of the winter, it might as well be on the moon. And so, it seemed to me that probably if I was going to write this series about the sheriff of the least populated county, the least populated state in America, I was going to have to do it without the benefit of all of that whiz-bang technology. But the nice thing about that was that it forced me to deal more with character and place, which is always going to be where the best writing, kind of takes place. I'll read about a rifle or something like that, or some piece of equipment, for half a page or so. But I'll read about a character for as long as you want to tell me about it. Or I'll listen to what a place is like, as long as you want to tell me about it. For me, that's the real enjoyment as far as that kind of thing is concerned. The beer question is a period of time. Well, it seemed like there were all of these characters all seemed to have like a signature drink, a signature vehicle, and all these things like that. And so I thought, okay, well, what would Walt's signature drink be? And I thought, Walt's not going to be a shaken, not stirred martini kind of guy. He's going to be just a blue collar beer, guy. And I thought, Budweiser, Coors, they really don't need my help. Probably at that point in time, Rainier was kind of getting ready to go out of business. They were, really kind of getting ready to tank and go out. And so, I thought, well, maybe I can kind of put a word in here and try and save, a brewery a little bit. And so I kind of pushed. I thought, okay, I'll have him drink Rainier beer. And there's not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't write me an email that says, why does Walt drink that shitty beer? I always write it back immediately and go, that's a fine macro brew, And it was interesting because when I first started doing library events here in Wyoming, the first library to ask me to do an event, was actually not Johnson County. I would like to point that out. It was actually Meeteetse. Meeteetse's a little library over there on the western part of the state. And they wrote me and they said, we read the cold edition, we'd like you to come over and do a library event for us. And I said, well, I'm happy to do that. And they wrote back and they said, well, we just want to make sure we're just a little branch library out of Cody, and we don't have a lot of money over here in Park County for, honorarium. And so we just wanted to check and make sure that that's okay. And what do you charge as an honorarium, for a library event? And I wrote back and I said, well, once you reach a certain level of literary notoriety, it's very difficult to negotiate your honorarium. And so my sense has always been a 6-pack of Rainier beer. And they wrote me back in 3 minutes and said, done. So consequently, I have done all 72 of the libraries in Wyoming. I haven't bought beer in about 7 years. It's kind of worked out to be kind of mutually beneficial for both of us. And then the other thing that happened was that we did the One Book Wyoming, and the state librarian brought this 18-pack of beer out and sat it out in front of me. And it's always funny like that because librarians really like bringing beer into their libraries. Oh shit! I wrapped it up in brown paper and it looked like heroin is what it looked like. Oh shit! You finally get your ass off the horse or what?
Pull that puppy.
Who's Mike? Why would I grab him? There was who's that writer who went to Australia, writes the travel books? Thoreau, is it Thoreau? Thoreau. And he's speaking in a hall in Fremantle, Western Australia, dusty place. There's 8 people there, it's stinking hot. And he just hears this from the back of the room. Bullshit. Bullshit. Sorry. I just thought of you. Sorry I'm late. I was at the horse riding with my no-good assistant, Tom Koltiska. Where is he? Wrong way, Tommy.
Behind.
I had to go and have a shower. So. But this is Craig's thing today, so I'm just in that.
No, not at all. Please. I thought you guys, I'm going to let you guys continue asking questions. Ask Robert questions here. How about that? You gang?
Right, Paul. Got a question, Brian? Everybody meet Brian? Okay, sorry for you. Yes, no. When people ask me to do it, and then I do it, and they look at me, they don't know what I'm saying. That was it. They don't understand, so there's not much use. Sorry?
He has a real problem with this because he goes like for about 4 months without doing it. And so then, I remember, I think it was last year or was the year before last, like they were trying to get you to do the Australian accent, and my Australian accent was better than his.
You can do it. They swear a lot. They made a lot. So if you just swear, that's Australian. Say something like, Jesus bloody audience, I'm going for a bloody B, man. And they judge to give me a B, not a bloody chance, man. See, no clue. No bloody B, man. Yes, sir.
I shook hands with you the other day, and I didn't shake
Poor
the
guy.
hand of an actor. Because I shook hands, when I was a little boy, I shook hands with Dan Blocken from Bonanza. And I remember he was a huge guy. I was a little boy, and his hand was like a big soft pillow. Your hand was the hand of a working man. I'm a working man, and I know the hand of a working man. So what do you do to have the hand of a working man?
Nothing illegal. Oh yeah, no, the biggest hand I've ever shook is my dad's. Never seen anything like this. It's like a meat cleaver. It's like it's twice the size. It's huge. Yeah, I used to work for a living. I still do. I like doing construction and stuff when I'm not working. I don't get paid for it, of course. Just for fun, The beer tastes good after you work.
Isn't it better when you do something, you feel like you've accomplished something like that? There's no feeling in the world like accomplishing something similar.
And it's a simple thing to building something or farming or something.
Sorry, I'm
like that kind of
not
work. And it's good for fitness, I find.
Did you make most of the bookcase that showed up in season 4? That was Ferg and the
Carrie.
Well, funny we got Brian here. Brian's, that's one of the top ADs in the world, probably, especially in TV, if not the top one. And but one day I had to kind of get his mind right. And I was trying to work doing this thing. I didn't know you had a wallet. Wrong slap. Have you got it? I had to do some construction or building. They're all the experts there on set. They're all, first off, the toolbox was pathetic. There was nothing you could use. Had to go for all this retro, old stuff. Because real working people aren't going to use that, dude. They want the saw that works and the hammer that's well balanced, And there's Brian trying to show me. What did I do, Brian?
Well, directing the episode was Peter Weller, and so he
Peter
wasn't
Weller.
as construction knowledgeable as yourself.
He said to me, he said, you know how to, what did he say, you know how to cut wood? I said, you know how to get the what's the name out of the way for it. But you were trying to show me too, weren't you?
Well, he had some specific shots in mind that I was trying to convey.
What did I do?
You opened the IKEA box.
Among other things, you didn't want power tools, so you looked through the tools and said, I know how to do this, step back.
Step well back. Like, I think I was throwing that thing out of the way, all that wood or something.
Yeah, it was a montage because you were also building the new front steps or replacing the bloody step, as well as building the cabinet.
Yeah. I like building stuff. Yes, sir.
Do you do all your action scenes, or do you have a bodybuilder?
They couldn't get one, obviously. Brian's probably better to answer that than me, but I'll answer it. I do most of that, yeah. But occasionally, just for convenience sake, I've got to be shooting a scene, and they just need somebody, like a shot of his shoulder with a camera in the back of the Bronco. They'll use Hans, my stand-in, who's a 20-year sheriff deputy, he's retired. So occasionally they do it, yeah. Did you know?
You have Rainier flown into Australia?
No. I did. I'll drink it. If it's cold, I'll drink it. I like it. And I like most beers. Yeah.
I know you were in Ireland when you were filming Valley Angel.
Vatican Angels.
My sister and I drove 14 days around the coast.
I did it in a day.
No, I wasn't drinking beer though. So, do you have any stories that you could tell us or memories about being in Ireland that you could tell a mixed audience?
I got so many stories about it. I did this series. Vatican Angels. I was a priest.
That was a stretch, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Luckily, he was an alcoholic. And the church owned a pub next door. So it was quite convenient. I had so much fun on that show. It was tricky, it was hard work, because it was the #1 show in Britain and Ireland, I guess, and probably Australia. So it was a much loved show, and I became the lead in the last season. Just, you know, it's funny, I got my no-good guy, Tommy. I had a no-good guy in Dublin, Dan Breen. I thought his name was Brain for the first 3 weeks. He needed to pick me up and took me straight to the pub. Kind of like this guy. What do we do? It's really hard work, long hours. I remember when I got the job and I was in Australia, and I auditioned. I felt pretty good about it. Then they flew me to London to audition again. I fly there, 24-hour flight from Australia to London. They take me to the Groucho Club in Soho. So I was an overseas member, so it's got a great bar there. There's a recurring theme here, but and we go upstairs, and the guys are gals in the room, and a cup of tea. Auditions? Why am I here? And so they gave me the job in the room, and I said, when do I start? They said, Monday. I said, well, I got to be back in Australia because I have to sign some contracts on a property I was buying. So I had to fly. I flew from Melbourne to London, 24 hours. There, 24 hours. 24 hours back to Melbourne. I was there 24 hours. And then I flew to London. They call me, or read-throughs, they call me. And I'm in this room, and I've been flying for felt like a week. And it's like this, and I'm the star of the show. And they're all looking at me like this. the BBC. These people are serious people. They make some pretty serious stuff. And I'm this, guy from Australia, rough-headed guy, and it was that's quite a pressurized situation to read the script in front of those people, with the rest of the cast and the producers and the directors. And I drank a lot of Guinness when I was young. I had a lot of fun. Yes.
What got you into acting in the first place?
I was sick of working for a living, to be honest. I always wanted to do it. I'm sure I've told this story before. I always was interested, but farmers and nurses and I guess loggers, just working folks mostly in my family. And I'd never met anybody that ever done anything like that. There was a couple of generations back, there were some oddbods, but one graduate. So I was working on an oil rig on a drill ship, and I had an accident, and a pretty bad one. Nearly didn't make it, but I woke up in a hospital, and I just, I got to thinking, and I got to read the newspaper a couple of days later, it said auditions. I thought, the hell with it, I'm lucky to be here, I'm going to try. But I was so stupid, I was so naive that the two pieces I chose to audition with were for guys in their 50s, and I was in my 20s. I didn't know what I was doing. I think I just took pity on me. I got it. Questions for Craig? Oh, hi.
Well, it was for Craig, but I guess it's for both of you guys. I know that Shakespeare has been a pretty big influence on the world, and so I was just wondering what your favorite Shakespeare play was, and what ways it helped shape your writing.
Woo. Wow, that's a tough question. Because it changes. I think, that's how good a writer he was. Is that your favorite Shakespeare play when, it's kind of interesting because you just brought that up as soon as Robert was talking about the difference between somebody in their 20s and somebody in their 50s, like that, because there are plays that really speak to you when you're young, like Romeo and Juliet, like Hamlet and all of those, and then there are ones that speak to you when you're a little older, the King Lears, the Tempests, and all of those, like that. But all of those that I just mentioned, are all absolute favorites. But it's still, that just shows you how good a writer he was. That your favorites evolve and change, as your identity evolves and changes in your life.
Measure for Measure is one of my favorites. I played Claudio. I like them all. King Lear, you're right. Lear, the older I get, the more mind blowing.
Especially fathers that have daughters, especially that one.
Wow.
It's like that line, stand up for bastards in Lear. That's the one.
Did he ever write a bad line? I don't know. I'm sure you could find one. Take you a while. Yes.
I have a question for Craig. What is your educational background?
What leads you to believe that I have? I have an education in writing. I just didn't let that get in the way of becoming a writer. It's well down to there. But I studied a lot of different things like that, and did a lot of different things like that. But actually, some of my education was actually in writing, and it was just a question of finding something that was worth writing about. An awful lot of the time, like that, I see a lot of writers that come out of writing programs. And they have all of these really incredible abilities and tools, which to write with, but they're like in their 20s, and all they want to write about is writing students in writing programs, writing novels about writing students in writing programs. I don't know about you, but I really don't want to read that stuff, And so I think, the education was very, very essential, because if you're going to try and do something different, you need to know what's been done. But I have to admit that, one of my terminal degrees, one of the final degrees that I got was actually in playwriting, because I wanted to know about writing dialogue. And I figured, that's all playwrights have is dialogue, so maybe that'll help me. And so, I got a terminal degree in playwriting, and then, wrote the Cold Dish, and then when it came out and all the reviews came out, all everybody talked about was the descriptive passages. So evidently it was a lost 2 years as far as I was concerned.
Did you have a degree at Marshall before you started
Yeah.
that?
I had quite a few degrees from a lot of different places.
Tell us about Marshall.
And a number of different places where I had different degrees where I didn't get them finished. But it was kind of that part of my life, where a lot of the writers that I enjoy were the ones that bounced around all over the world, like having experiences to draw from. And, for me, that was really kind of important, to try and have that. Because a lot of the writers that I like, had those kind of experiences and drew from a lot of different things, to sit down before they actually started writing. And I laugh about it like that because, I started writing in my, I guess it was basically my, mid-40s. And everybody's response to that is always, why did you wait so long to start writing? And I thought I was starting really early, to be honest with you. So I don't know if I've made up my mind on that one yet or not.
The Crocodile Hunter was one of my favorite Aussies, and now you are. I was just wondering.
Say that again?
The Crocodile Hunter, he was one of my favorite Aussies.
Which one?
Okay, well that goes my question. I was just wondering, did you ever get to meet him?
Which one?
No. No, Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin. I was really upset when we lost Steve. He was a very wonderful human being, I thought. People, kind of poo-pooed him a bit, and the cultural elites did, in Australia especially, and I thought he was a really decent guy. He was good stuff. And yes, I did meet him.
That's cool.
There's some hands over here, too.
Hello.
When I was growing up, I always had a hero besides my dad. It started out with Rowdy Yates when I was 8 or 10, and then Rowdy Yates became Dirty Harry. And for years, Dirty Harry was the man. And for a while, it was Steven Seagal, and then it was Robert Redford, and he's still a hero to a lot of people, me included. Well, the person who, or not the person, but the character to me for the last few years, first in the books and then in the TV show, is Longmire. He's the epitome of the American hero. He's honest. And I think that's why people are drawn not just to the actor, but also to the stories. I was wondering, has it gotten so overwhelming for you, because so many of us, you're inclined, you are, Longmire, there's no separating you, you'll always be one. For you that you can't even go to the airport without being in
Well, it depends which airport. I was in Denver a couple years ago. I had one of these production hats that I made up for the cast and crew that year.
Thank you, sir. I'm not paying $100, so that's what you know.
That's a dude. I wouldn't sell for the value. And I'm talking to this guy, where'd you get your hat? I'm talking to who I think I am. I said, I think you are. There's people, in this room everybody knows me, but there's billions of people that don't, I would imagine. And I go places, most places where people don't, but oh yeah, I get some funny looks though. But then again, I always did. But if I had to choose somebody to be associated with forever, I couldn't think of a better character. So thanks very much.
Craig was talking earlier about you and your work ethic.
I gotta stop you right there. You're gonna ask me for a card for that guy, for Bob Baxter. Before I forget, I'm gonna give it. Well, don't forget.
And you take care of such detail.
Go ahead.
He was talking about your work ethic and how much you just pour yourself into this. And, you're out there at 4 in the morning and you're going over your lines and, your script and all. So he was talking about his admiration, I guess would be a good word, for you. So can you share how you first encountered Craig and your
A wanted poster. I mean, and I read the first book and loved it. And I mean, I don't know what I can say about Craig. He would hate me off the bat because, but thank God for Craig Johnson is all I can say.
Amen.
I'm not the only one.
Robert Briggs, you were clear on that, right?
Oh, yeah, I did it. I thought a lot. I think, it's suited for a hot day, a cold one. It's, I'm a bit of a beer connoisseur. I like it a lot. I got some back at the cabinet. I might have had 2 at lunch today. The Paradise Ranch. Everybody come on the ride? Yeah. I was just being sociable. Be rude not to. I like it a lot.
When we see all those crunched up Rainier cans in the corner of the seat, is that Brian's work or is that your work?
I like it too.
It's a group effort. Everybody knows.
Bill, I guess you're going to be around for quite a while because all of us really look forward to Craig's next book. And I am also a fan of J.A. Jance, Judy Jance. And I heard her talk in March. And Craig, if you're not going to change characters at all, because she's got like 3 different series, but she's 72 years old, and she has just written 53 books. Are you going to have that number when you're 72?
Let's figure it out here. Let's figure it out here. Like, the problem is there are an awful lot of authors out there that are writing with other people, and they partner up. Like, and what happens, of course, is they provide an outline, and the other author is the one that really writes the books. And so there's a lot of that going on these days. And then there are even the dead authors that are gone, like that the estates hire somebody else to continue writing their books. I have left specific instructions that if I should die in Res Dog between here and Ucross, that's it. Okay, it's all over with. But no, I'm doing at least 1 book a year, and also 2 novellas. Like generally, like the collections of short stories that go along with it. I think you get into trouble if you start writing more than 1 book a year. To be honest with you, I think it really kind of dilutes the quality of your work to an extent that I don't really want to do. I want the books to be of a certain level, and I think 1 a year is probably pretty good. Now there'll always be the opportunities, like whenever I run into a story that's not going to be a full-length novel. I mean, there are a lot of times when you're a writer, a lot of times I'm sure it's a lot like being an actor. When you read a script and you think to yourself, okay, yeah, this one's got legs. This one will probably go the distance. And then you read others and you think, okay, that might be a good short film. Or it might be, something else. And so I'll continue to write the novellas, as I go along. But it'll probably be about a book a year, I think. I got 12 underneath me, and I'm 55 years old. So by the time I'm, I don't know, who knows how long I'll make it, So, but yeah, probably about a book a year, I think. Because I really enjoy Walt's company, to be honest with you. That's probably the biggest, thing to make sure that I'll continue to write the books. I always get that question periodically. People will say, are you going to stop writing the books? And I'm always thinking, do you know something I don't? And it just, for me, the biggest insurance that I'll continue to write the books is I just really like the guy's company. I really enjoy going in the truck there and seeing where the heck he's going, what's going to happen. So.
We did too.
Well, thank you.
You win today. We'll take that as a comment, but that's a winning one. Thank you, very kind. Yes, sir. Yes.
So, Mike,
Okay, this is an Australian guy called Glenn
yeah, I
from Brisbane,
dial
who lives in Seattle. No, you're not. So this is an Australian accent that's been here for maybe 20 years, is that right? 18 years.
So, my grandfather was a stockman in Australia. My mother grew up.
Gold Stockman means cowboy.
Yeah. My mother grew up in the outback. You spent some time in the bush. Tell us about, do you feel a connection between that and New Mexico and Wyoming?
Thanks for the question. Good question. I think you know the answer. I think there's an absolute connection. You know, people say, oh, you're Australian. First of all, the American West doesn't just belong to America. There was a time in history when people from all over the planet came. And it was just a miraculous time, not for everybody. Everybody didn't do well, but it was finding a new world in a new way. That's for the entire world. The connection with Australia, I mean, the funny story, I was telling someone, you know, I used to have a girlfriend in Texas. I'd always go to Texas, and when I was in Hollywood, I guess, years ago, I went to Texas, it's so big here, oh, big, everything's big, it's so big. This place must be ginormous, you know. So I looked it up on a map. Well, the state I've been living in, Australia, was 3.5 times the size of Texas. I mean, geez, I had some fun with that. They're just selling the biggest ranch in the world, which is in Australia. And it's the Kidman Ranch. And it was actually called Kidman's great uncle whose parents died when he was 12, and he took up in the bush and started selling shovels and stuff to miners, and ended up with the biggest ranch in the world. At one stage, 150,000 square miles. It's only the government buys some off because there's defense, they actually American bases there, and they're only letting them sell 65,000 square miles of it. The Chinese are trying to buy it, but they won't let them buy it. Yeah, that's good. I mean, you know, we had pickup trucks, slightly different versions. We call them utes, Glenn, utility vehicles. And everybody had big properties. Everybody had, you know, my family grew wheat, barley, and maize. Had some cattle, had some sheep. A lot of horses. My granddad had the best horse team. Some say in the state, but certainly in the district, for farming, clearing land. And so it's a connection is, and we were in the same wars, including Vietnam. They had the draft in Australia. A lot of people don't know that, but that's true. So it's very, very similar.
Tell them about your Aunt Ruby.
Ruby. I didn't tell you that. She lived across the patio to a place, you know when she was coming because she hated snakes. And there's just snakes everywhere. Like there's a sea of snakes in summer. Like it's the sea of snakes. Anyway, like you go to the cemetery where most of my relatives are in. There's just snakes everywhere. In summer, it's, yeah, and Ruby would hate them, so she'd come with a shotgun. Here comes Ruby. Hated snakes.
I know that's going to end up in a book. So find the right spot for it.
Yeah.
What do you like best about playing the character?
That's a hard question. There's so many things. I like, I think for me, obviously comes from great books. My granddad and probably a lot of people in this room, men and women, by the way. It's like an old-fashioned, I don't know what it is, but I feel for me the character represents a lot of people that don't say much, but they're there and they just do their thing every day. They work and pay their taxes and get on their business, and they're solid, and they don't make a big noise about stuff. I like people like that, so I like to represent those people, and I try and do it to the best of my ability, and it's a great honor for me to do that.
It also integrates. I think it integrates itself into the way that, you know, that he does the job that he does. You know, because if you watch Robert in the scenes, I guarantee you, Robert will be the one that moves the least and will be the most focused, you know, in any given scene. I mean, you get a lot of like guest stars coming in, like, and I'm sure, you know, Brad can like talk to this like a great deal more than I can, that have a lot of different acting styles, like, and a lot of them are more flamboyant, or they're trying to draw attention to themselves, trying to do things like that to get more camera time, like that, or get the focus on them. And they haven't learned that stillness, that focus is what it is that really, you know, draws the viewer's eyes, it seems to me.
That's absolutely right. There's a new style of acting, I think it's called authenticity. It's you telling the truth. Don't act, just be. And so many actors are so terrified of not getting the job that they do stuff. They fidget and they twitch and you think you're desperately trying to be interesting. People subconsciously turn on an actress. Was it this year or last year? She kept doing this again. You can do that all you want. That's fine. It's your prerogative. I'm not responding. I'm just not. So she basically slapped it on her own. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. It took me a long time to figure out the way I want to act, and that is just authenticity. I did a movie recently with a guy. He's a Canadian guy who grew up in Australia. A show called Rectify. Have you heard of Rectify? A lot of people say it's the best show on TV, and I just did a movie with him in Australia. And I had a few whiskeys one night, and a few beers, and a few more. We got to talking, and we absolutely agreed in the way you should act. The other guy that agrees is the guy that played Branch is dead. Gerald. And it happens over time. You do it so long that eventually you throw off the shackles of all the BS and the indicating, and you just, because the lens is like a magnifying glass. It'll look into your soul. You just got to make sure your soul's ready to be looked at. That's all. You know, the rest will take care of itself. But trusting that is what most actors find hard to do. It's just to trust it and just say the words and mean them and just be there. It's simplicity, like most things in life. Simplicity is hard to achieve. And that's what you have to strive for, in my view. Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment about the scene where Barlow comes to the cabin.
Careful, careful. There might be people here who haven't.
But no, it's the end of season 4.
How many people have not seen to the end of season 4? Anybody? Oh, there's people over here. That would be a horrible thing for you to give away. Okay.
A scene where you could just, there's not a lot of dialogue in some places where you can just feel the intensity of you're trying to figure out what he's doing here, and he's thinking all the time about what he's gonna do, and it was just one of those great scenes.
Yeah, it was for us too. It was, I don't know if you did that one, Brian. No, I did. Chris Chulak is a master director. It was 12 or 15 page scene, and once again, apropos what I was saying, like a lot of people will move cameras and sliders and rails and tracks and dolly, whatever. And sometimes, a slow move is nice, but and there's all this gratuitous movement that the actors will do to try and make sense. And what is far more interesting is to do nothing. And if the words are good, if the story makes sense, because oftentimes when people say, oh, the acting's really good in the show, what they're saying, they don't realize what they're saying is the writing is really good. If the story captures your imagination and carries the audience, and obviously you along, that's what makes it compelling. Oh, and what it was for us. And I just, for me, all I had to do was think what I had to think. And Gerald, who I just adore and love working with, a magnificent actor and a magnificent guy. We were the same. We were totally in that scene together. And if you get two actors that decide to be in the scene, rather than competing, and that happens, trying to win the scene or mess the other person up, that happens all the time. If you let that go and just be in the scene, then the scene exponentially becomes better, especially if the writing's good. But that scene was special for us, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Does your sense of decency want to bring Fur closer to give the bird more support, and there's a strict code in that.
Just be nice to Shirley.
Nice, good. Adam Bronley is one of my best friends. I'm the only one that keeps him out of jail.
Oh, yeah.
I love that guy. But Adam's funny because he will say, he'll complain that, I want my character to, progress and grow and become wiser, and then we'll do a scene and be a complete goofball. I'll go out of my way to, because he's complaining that he's not, I can't be the funny guy all the time. I said, well, stop being the funny guy. So it's not, I love the guy. We're very close. He's here. I think he's helping Ruby with the kids acting, so that's going to be a disaster. Be nice to him, yeah.
What about Mice and Men? Did you know Mice and Men
Yeah.
before that?
Oh, I do Steinbeck. Oh,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I think Adam did that somewhere. And we're very good friends. I was at his cabin at midnight last night after the thing. He'd been at 6, so I had to go to bed. But no, we're very close.
He seems a
Very
little defensive, doesn't he? Like he got caught kicking the puppy or something.
But you just see it there and you just want to what makes it even better is he's really sensitive. It's such a great target. We're very close. How are we, Brian?
Give him the $100 back. Over here.
Thank you.
More and more. But there's people I know in Australia that this is how it's different. It's different. They don't even know I'm an actor. I think I'm a farmer or something. Someone's got some land and growing stuff. They're not close friends, obviously. My mom still wonders when I'm going to get a real job. And I said to her a couple of years, this is a nice place you live. Is this the top story, Mom? Is this like the what they call penthouse? Oh, wow, that's a great view of the ocean, the Pacific. Wow, that's an expensive place. How do you afford it? Oh, I forgot, Mom. Yeah, I'll get a property, obviously. Shut up. Yeah?
It varies. Like, I mean, you mean like as far as regions in the United States? Is that what you're saying? Well, obviously, like one of the real strongholds is like up and down the Rocky Mountain region, all the way from Montana, all the way from down into New Mexico and Arizona. But there are really strange pockets where the books are really popular. We've been on the New York Times bestsellers list, I guess for like about 7 years running now. But in strange places, like it seems to be from all over, which is nice. Like that, because I think one of the things you talked about of Mice and Men, one of the things that Steinbeck used to talk about was the universality of the human condition. Was one of the things that you're trying to acquire, one of the things you're trying to exemplify in the writing. Good writing, draws people together, makes them feel, the same, something in common, that human quality. And, I think that's what you're always trying to shoot for as far as the books are concerned, and even in the placement of the characters and all of that. I get a lot of emails, from people that say, because I write about the grumpy ladies at the courthouse, and I get letters from people in Jacksonville, Florida that say, you've been to our courthouse. No, it's just a universality, really.
Paris, they're very popular in France.
Yeah, well, bestsellers in France, which is really kind of weird because, if I was to try and think, back before you know, if somebody would ask me if they would have said, okay, these books about the sheriff of the least populated county and least populated state are going to be runaway hits in a foreign country, maybe France wouldn't have been the first guess. I would have guessed Australia. I would have guessed maybe Australia.
Makes perfect sense to me, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. That fellow?
Walt Longmire was an athlete when he was young. Was Robert Taylor in any organized sports?
Yes, sir, I was.
Rugby?
No. I played Australian rules football, which is a game, they play rugby in Australia and they play a bit of soccer. But the biggest sport in Australia is Australian rules football. My dad played for a team called South Melbourne, and moved to Sydney and became the Swans. And my dad only played one season, 2 seasons, came down from the country. In those days, every little town has a team and there's leagues. And you could go back to a country town, which I did, and you'd get paid to play. And often the best guys would never go to the cities because they wouldn't leave the farm. And these 2 old boys at my uncle's funeral said, "You ever say you're all in the 40s, huh?" I said, no, I didn't. That was in the 50s. No, I did not. And these 2 old guys, they both shook their head. My dad had a bit of a reputation as a bit of a knuckleman. He had played 2 seasons, and peak. You know, and I played Australian football. I was also, if you're interested, but I was a pretty good water polo player. I was a rower, rowed for the state. And I was surf life saving in Australia, it's a big sport. Because it's all the kids have to learn how to be in the surf and how to stay alive. And there's surf clubs on every beach and life saving clubs. And you start when you're sick in the ocean. You have races and it's very competitive. I did that for a long time.
I think we're running out of time. I think we'll do 2 more questions. What do you think? 2 more? Like this stuff? Nope, this guy over here, everybody says. He's been trying forever to try to get his question out.
It's done this way.
When I was kind of raised in the country, I'm really enamored with your writing and your vocabulary and everything, and how it transforms over to the movie. I just wondered if Walt, you look up at the sky and see it, unkindness of ravens, if you ever want to say it's
It's a bunch of birds.
Well, that kind of like hits on something that that does it very near and dear to my heart. I have to admit, like that whenever I'm teaching classes in writing, like I'm always telling students that like if you write something and it sounds like something that you've read before, guess what, you did. And that's kind of like the most feared. My first reader is Judy. Judy reads my books back to me aloud. When we're laying there in bed out there at the ranch, like and. The worst thing that can happen is that I fall asleep while she's reading. That tells me there's something dreadfully wrong with that saying. And then,
It's not actually the worst thing I could have. It's legally confused.
but I mean, the most feared words at the ranch are, is there another way to say this? And she'll use that on me periodically. The example I always use is the red hot gun barrel swung around under the looming mountains, because the gun barrel is always red hot, the mountains are always looming. And so one of your jobs as an author is to try and find other words to say what it is that you want to say. And I'll tell you what, some of the worst offenders that are on the face of the earth are the script writers like that, because we get the descriptives that they put in there sometimes, and they're in a hurry. They're just trying to get across the idea of what it is that they're trying to. You're never going to see it. You're never going to hear it. All it is just a physical description to give you. But I've seen the red hot gun barrel swing around under the window mountains numerous times on some of those scripts. Like I sometimes feel like circling them, writing them back, and going, "Can you do something better than this?" I know what kind of response I would get.
The last person is
So,
Lynn.
Amy had a show for Netflix, and now it's on Netflix. We were all very concerned that it was going to continue on.
Boy, you were. Robert and I.
maybe
Six. So I got six.
Yeah, we gotta get 6 out of them first.
What do you think, Brian?
We won't even release till September, and so they won't even start asking themselves the question until October.
Well, yes and no.
So what do we
But
have
I
to
think,
do?
my answer is, I think there will be a season 6.
Yeah, I do too. But as it happens, things happen. There should be, but always.
I think we have to cut it off at this point in time. That they came over and told me that we're running a little bit over, and they're gonna yell at us if they start signing. So, yeah, we'll start signing if that's okay with you guys.